Today on the Unabated podcast, Captain Jack and I are talking about how you can expand your gambling network, how to make connections, knowing who to trust, and so much more. It's a great episode. Let's get to it.
If the guy goes unabated, that's the new word, unabated. That's kind of too big a word. That's like mayonnaise. I'm assuming that's the biggest word I know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome on into the Unabated podcast. I'm Thomas Viola, and joining me, as always, Mr. Unabated himself, Captain Jack. And today, we're going to be getting into a topic that's nice and evergreen here. We're going to be talking about how to expand your gambling network. That's not just talking about expanding your outs and things like that. We're talking about meeting other people, sharing of ideas, knowing who you can trust. It's going to be a great show. We're going to be going through all of that. But first, Jack, how has your week been? It's been a minute, but man, I'll tell you, it's been a fun week here in Las Vegas. I'll say that much.
Oh, I'm sure you had a fun week. It's not often the Stanley Cup comes parading down the center of town, and that's what happened for you. So congratulations, Thomas. You had to wait 6 long years for that. I can't imagine the agony and the heartbreak you've been through, but congratulations on seeing a championship in your town.
Saw 2 championships this weekend, actually. We saw the Stanley Cup, of course, which was absolutely fantastic. The parties have been nonstop. I haven't run into any Golden Knights just yet, but I'm holding out hope of achieving my dream of drinking from the Stanley Cup without actually having to go out on the ice and win it, because that would be very, very difficult. But also saw the United States take down the CONCACAF Champions League here in Vegas this weekend. As a soccer head, it might be a cash grab tournament, but you know what? It was really fun to watch us dismantle Mexico and Canada. This team has a lot of talent. I'm already getting excited for the World Cup, and we got a Women's World Cup coming up right around the corner here. Ton of stuff in the soccer world going on this summer, really, for those that don't want to just bet baseball. But today, like we said, we are talking about how to build up your gambling network here. And some of that is how you introduce yourself to people, how you suss out who you can and can't trust, and all sorts of other things that go into being able to develop a tight inner circle. And Jack, let's get started talking about it. One of the first things here that I want to ask you, how is it that you suss out if someone is on the up and up, if they're a contender, or if they're just a pretender and maybe a shadier character than you want to be getting involved with?
So in terms of how do you hone your spidey senses to be able to read somebody at first meeting? Look, this is important because it's evergreen, but it's also timely. We have BetBash coming up, Spanky's BetBash in August, and there's a lot of people that are going to be attending that. It's even bigger this year, which is hard to imagine, but it is. And there's speed networking. There's a lot of opportunity to meet people and kind of find, I'm not going to say find partnerships, but at least find people that you might want to carry on a relationship with in terms of networking down the line. So there's generally the crowd at BetBash is going to be a fairly Rec Plus crowd. These are people that want to learn more. They're aspirationally sharp, and they're maybe not the sharpest sports bettors in the world, but they're going to BetBash to try to get sharper. But when you're in a sports book any other day of the week, there's a lot of characters in a sports book, right? And if you make the mistake of actually talking to people in a sports book, which I rarely ever do, if you spot me in a sports book, I'm usually heads down trying to stay as unapproachable as possible because I'm there to work, right? But one of the first telltale signs is if you start to talk to somebody about sports betting and all they want to do is talk about the money. In other words, like, oh yeah, if I just had $50,000, I could definitely make this system work. I've got this foolproof system, but I just need the $50,000. Or conversely, if they only want to talk about their wins, in other words, oh yeah, I won this big one. I won this big parlay. I won this and I won that. They never talk about the losses. That's a red flag right there. Anybody that's talking about if they only had the money, if they only had a little bit more capital and they win all the time, those are the 2 biggest red flags. Because honestly, if you are a real sports bettor, you lose a lot. You lose often, and you have to deal with those losses. And if they were winning all the time, they wouldn't need the money. So the other thing is, I often tell people, like, when you're meeting somebody new, whether that be online or in real life, related to sports betting, stay within your comfort zone. Like if somebody's like, hey, let's pair up on this. Let's do this together. And it's for a dollar amount that you're just not comfortable with. Don't feel bad to say no. There's no machismo you have to prove of how good a sports bettor you are just because you're willing to slap down $5,000 on something. If you're only willing to slap down 100, 50, 20, let that be your limit to start. Those of you who have PPH outs, in other words, like local bookies, that often you have to start at a very low limit with a local bookie to prove yourself, to prove that you're going to actually pay if you lose. And sometimes those limits are like $300 for the entire week. You have to put in your work and you have to prove yourself. And so anybody that you're willing to partner with, if they've been through that ringer of having a PPH out or a local bookie, they should be okay with, okay, let's just start small and see where it goes. And one more thing, when you meet somebody new, don't tip your hand. If you do have a golden goose in your pocket, I don't know, that sounds kind of weird, but if you have something that's really a moneymaker for you, don't lead off with that. Don't tell them right away, like, oh, I can do this. I got this. Because one, you're going to sound like you're the kind of person you're trying to avoid, somebody that's always talking about their wins and kind of talking themselves up too much. But also, you don't want to give away what you have to bring to the table completely. So you got to build that trust factor first. And you often don't want to tip your hand when you're meeting somebody new.
Exactly. It very much is. You want to play the cards close to the vest, and especially because you don't know who someone else is going to be talking to. You don't know who they're involved with. You don't know where that information is going to be going from there. And that's something that you really have to be mindful of. Isn't that right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you have to assume, and hopefully I'll get into this a little bit later as well. You have to assume that whatever you say to somebody that is not a close partner or in your smallest of small groups, you have to assume they're talking to somebody else and they're going to repeat what you said. So yeah, that's another reason why you definitely shouldn't tip your hand too much before you can fully trust someone, because chances are they're gonna talk about it. So if you're beating some rogue prop at some sports book and you're like, oh, they price this prop wrong every day, Tom, and I go in there and I can grab $300 of value every day. Well, chances are you're just going to go to somebody else and go, hey, I got this hot prop. It's this sports book, and you get about $300 a day. And then that person's going to, and before you know it, the angle's probably gone. So that's one good reason just to assume people are going to be talking.
That is very, very true. Now, when it comes to some of the encounters that you may have in a sports book, what's your biggest pet peeve when someone comes up to you and it's like, I know you're Captain Jack, you're a great bettor. And they, of course, are going to want advice, or they're going to ask the age-old question, what are you betting today?
Who do you like tonight?
What are your biggest pet peeves here?
Yeah, that's it right there. Who do you like tonight? You got any picks for me? Look, I've been in sports books with Spanky, and Spanky famously doesn't know who the players are, right? And the sportsbook manager will be like, "Oh, hey, it's Spanky and Captain Jack. Who do you guys like tonight?" Now, if you follow either of us at all, we don't make picks. That's not how we operate. And in fact, we're not really making picks even when we are betting. We're basically betting the market inefficiencies. So, yeah, that bothers me the most. Asking, what picks you got tonight? Who do you like? But beyond that, it's people that also are not realizing that I'm kind of there to work. If I'm in a sports book, I'm there because I'm probably looking to get down. Now, if you see me out at BetBash this year at Circa, I'm probably not working that week. It's just too much of a social atmosphere. So if I'm hanging around the sports book, I'm probably just hanging around the sports book. You can approach me then. But if you were to see me in some other sports book somewhere and I'm not wearing unabated gear, chances are I'm there to actually do work. And if you try not to get in my way, please.
And that goes, well, first off, a sportsbook manager asking you and Spanky, what do you like tonight, is pretty ironic, given the fact that you're probably not going to be able to get it down at said book.
Oh, right. He was asking for himself, as if like we're going to oh, well, we really like this, but we can't bet it. So here you go. We'll give it to you. No, we're not that generous.
Mm-hmm. But it's not just you and your personal opinions on being approached at a book, but obviously something like BetBash is more of an event. People are there to network. People are there to build these connections. But yeah, for professional bettors, is that a good rule of thumb in general? Just if someone's at the book, they're probably working and probably don't want to be bothered, or is it more of just a case by case basis, or even just a quick wave hello?
I mean, that's actually a really good point, Tom. Is it's usually best to approach somebody outside of where they're actually working. So in other words, if I were to see an advantage player that I know is hole carding, I'm not going to go tap them on the shoulder while they're on a blackjack game and be like, "Hey, man, hey, John, good to see you." Don't use their name. Don't even approach them in the casino whatsoever. You're probably hurting yourself because they're red hot in terms of surveillance watching them, and now you've associated yourself with them, and now you've become, quite frankly, an accomplice to them in the eyes of surveillance. So, it's a different situation in a sports book slightly because people are kind of working out in the open. They're not there, in disguise or anything. But at the same time, don't use somebody's name in a casino or a sports book. Don't draw attention to your interaction with them. Be respectful that they could be doing something there they don't want you to be a part of. So you got to understand that, like, especially around a sports book, it always seems like, oh, Jack, you're a personality on Twitter and on social media. You must want all this attention in a casino and sports book, right? No, like normally when I'm in a casino or a sports book, I'm trying to stay as low key as possible. Although I will say, if you see me there in like unabated gear, I'm probably doing something else and I'm probably not really working because obviously I'd be drawing too much attention myself. So that's another reason why sometimes you can, come up and say hello. But either way, just be respectful and, maybe observe and figure out if they're doing something that they might not want to be disturbed.
Yeah, because again, we're using you as the example here, but these are general rules of thumb that can apply to anyone from the Spankies and the Jacks of the world to even someone who is, well, a little more out in the open, like Rufus, a guy who obviously is using his real name and everybody pretty much knows his face when he comes into a book. But that is also something about a lot of bettors that really feel like it doesn't need to be said, but apparently for some people it does. There are a lot of pseudonyms in this industry. If you know someone's real name, there's a reason that they're using a pseudonym, and you probably should not ever talk about their real name.
Right. That's kind of a golden rule when it comes to all forms of advantage play. Look, I don't use my real name because I need a little bit of layer of protection. I have, I still do things in casinos with casino games. I don't want people to know my real name. I have been known to wear disguises in casinos. So, yeah, I would rather just, fly under the radar that way. A little bit of anonymity is a good thing when it comes to the internet these days anyway. So, but yeah, don't ever use somebody's real name in a casino setting, whether it be sportsbook or otherwise.
I'm just picturing you in like a full Mrs. Doubtfire outfit right now.
Okay, that's a little weird, but as a disguise. Oh, yes. Okay, never mind. Yeah, okay.
But going back to approaching people at something like BetBash, it is a networking event. It is a time when you're supposed to be there, meeting new people, getting to know some new bettors. Maybe not necessarily, giving away all of your edges and comparing, but it's a time to exchange some information. And when it comes to your own information, what are some of the ways that you recommend people thinking about, okay, these are the things that I should avoid talking about. These are the things that are okay for me to talk about, and how you balance that kind of quid pro quo, because obviously everyone's going to be guarding their own edges.
Right. And this is especially true at something like BetBash, where you're meeting somebody and you can kind of tell pretty quickly the level of their sophistication. And you probably do not want to basically lay all your cards on the table and say, oh, this is what I do to make money here where I'm at. You kind of have to be a little bit strategic in who you're talking to and what you're saying to them. The person you're talking to may be far more logistically organized than you are. And so if you tell them about this play that makes you $50, well, they could probably scale that 10x and they could make $500 with each bet or something like that. So you have to be a little bit careful that way. One of the best things, though, I think, in terms of what I've seen in networking is find somebody who just likes to talk shop about things with you. You don't have to be like a quid pro quo. It just has to be a oh, I know what you're talking about because I go through that same thing too. And maybe it's something like balancing work life, or about work and life rather. Or maybe something like getting limited at books and being like, oh, yeah, I've been limited at Canby and BetMGM and all those. And you kind of commiserate over that, maybe talk about each other's, various limits and things like that. But you always want to kind of keep it a little bit more like you just want to get to know the person. And I think that's a big part of it. Hey, Tom, the first time I met you, you remember this, was up at Legacy Club at Circa. And you're a very talkative, aggressive guy. Not aggressive, but I was like, okay, this guy's kind of cool, but I have no idea if he's a sharp bettor or what I can trust him with. So it was very much like we just talked about casual things, talked about life in general. I knew you came in with Rufus, and so I knew you knew Rufus. I knew you knew that much, but I didn't know you much, so I wasn't about to kind of say, oh, hey, look at this bet that I just made, or look at what I'm doing down in the sports book. Keep it casual to start, and I think build your relationship that way.
Exactly. It's very okay to start your conversation with somebody just talking about some normal things, especially at an event like BetBash. Where are you from? What do you like? What sports do you just like watching? Just anything, just getting to know somebody. It's almost, this is very awkward dating that's going on here. Let's be real.
Yes, it is. And, BetBash is one of a kind event in terms of awkwardness. 98% male, maybe 99% male, except for the closing night event, which suddenly all these females show up. Well, what's going on there? But yeah, no, it's a very good event for meeting people, and trust me, everyone else is coming into it the same way. So don't worry about the awkwardness. We have the speed dating event that Spanky puts on. That's a great way to meet people. I met quite a few people in that speed networking event last year where it just felt like, oh, wow, okay. I look forward to talking to you again. And I have. So there's always opportunities there.
Now, when it comes to some of the conversations, if they do get down to a little more of the nitty gritty, one thing that you want to watch out for and avoid is, quite frankly, these are people you don't know. And some of them might even just outright be lying to you in order to manipulate for their own edge, right?
Right. So it really comes down to, how do you trust somebody? How do you build that trust? Now, we've been talking so far about something like in-person meeting, whether in a sports book or at BetBash. But for the majority of people that are listening to this podcast, your way of meeting somebody is online. And right now, with social media, you have a lot of different ways to meet people. I would say meeting people and networking with people follows a similar scientific method that I've laid out in my sports betting. And the first step of the scientific method is to observe and build a hypothesis. So you observe tweets from one person. Maybe you follow them on Twitter. Maybe you see them in a Discord or a Slack environment, and you observe their level of sharpness, and you go, oh, okay. You make kind of a mental note. This person seems like they know what they're talking about. And from there, you go and you build your hypothesis and you build a theory around it of saying, okay, every time I've seen Tom post something, it's generally pretty good, or he's entertaining, or he's got something sharp to say. I think I might want to, know this guy a little bit better. And that's when you move into the experimentation phase, where you reach out and try to establish some kind of network with them. This is where it helps to have yourself also out there saying sharpish things, or at least putting yourself out there as someone that people can know, like, and trust, right? So when you get to that DM phase, you can start to build that networking and say, oh, hey, look, it's Jack. I just wanted to reach out, really liked your post about MLS. And, I actually was just getting started in MLS. Any advice for somebody starting out in it? Build that relationship. Again, start small. Start with something that's in your comfort zone. Don't start saying, hey, look, I have a fresh BetMGM account here in Indiana. Do you want to bet into it? Because you seem pretty sharp. That's a little too forward. That's going to come across as like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you asking for here? Build the relationship first. Build that trust. And then, further that along. Look, you don't have to exchange phone numbers. You don't have to be calling each other. You don't have to text each other all the time. This is just a person that you can trust, and share some information with down the line.
Exactly. Again, the similarities to dating are very real here. You're building that trust over time. And do you feel like a lot of bettors in general do want to be helpful for other people starting out? There's of course a big difference between someone like you or someone like Rufus saying, oh yeah, here's my golf model, and someone saying, oh, well, these are the places that you might want to start if you're someone who's looking to just improve your edge and get better.
Yes, I think there is a lot of people out there that are into sports betting and kind of want to prove how smart they are, right? Like that's why we do sports betting, so we can prove to ourselves that we can beat this game, this logic puzzle. And for some people, though, they would like to be acknowledged, and that's why a lot of times you'll see somebody try to build up some kind of clout online. And often people, the shortcut they take is, oh, I'm going to talk about my big win. I'm going to post my ticket and talk about my huge win that I had on this event. I prefer to take the longer game approach where you just keep on trying to help people and say sharpish things so that you can kind of build that reputation as somebody who's helpful and is somebody that you can learn from. One of the things, Tom, that I've always done is I'll reply to anybody that reaches out to me, unless it's clearly a scam or it's somebody wasting my time. I'll reply, and even if it's somebody I can't help in any way, I'll just say, hey, thanks for reaching out. I think that's a good way to kind of just build that reputation online, and that's served me well over the years. I have many situations where somebody I helped came back and said, hey, Jack, here, I don't know if you saw this, but here's some positive EV, and oh yeah, it was. And I've probably made six figures from people kind of just giving back to what I gave out to them.
It's true. I mean, there definitely is a side of the gambling social media community that is less than fun to interact with, but there are so many fantastic supportive individuals in this community, and especially in a place like the Unabated Discord, which, by the way, if you're not a member, if you want to meet some new great people and you're not already a member of the Unabated Discord, click the link below and sign up today. Get involved, because it is a fantastic community full of people looking to help each other become sharper and looking to give out good advice just as much as they're looking to get it. But when it comes to some of that advice and being able to suss out what is good versus what is bad and knowing who to trust, it helps to have your own circles of influence, your own inner circle, and then moving out from there. How is it that you build up, and how is it that you find people move from place to place?
Right. So, Tom, this is what I would term as concentric circles. In other words, they all have the same point of origin, and it's you. It's you, the bettor. And basically, these are concentric circles that some have a bigger radius than others. And at the smallest radius is your smallest, tightest circle, and that's basically family, business partners, or maybe somebody that you have like just one-on-one correspondence with. And it's understood that whatever happens in that circle stays in that circle. Okay. It's not necessarily any kind of legal agreement or anything. It's just this is your explicit circle of trust. Okay. That's your tightest circle. Now, radiating a little bit larger than that, as your secondary circle, is basically a small networking group. Maybe these are teammates. Maybe these are people that you have like a small group on Telegram that you share information with. And it's also understood here that, okay, whatever we talk about in this circle is within our closed circle of friends, but it's not necessarily bankroll sharing or anything like that. It is just more information sharing among similar type of people. But again, though, it's a circle of trust. Now we get out from there, and it's it's a bigger circle of trust. And this would be like if you were a part of a private Discord or maybe a private group somewhere where it's we're always adding in new sharp people that we see, or we're trying to exchange notes. But you understand that the assumption of trust breaks down a little. Everyone's kind of free to use this information as they choose. You hope you can get back as much as you give in. You hope that you have enough people here that it's a one-to-many relationship in terms of what you put out and what you get back. And this is a situation where you just have to be a little bit more careful with what you say, because again, you kind of have to assume people are talking. And this is where you also need to make sure that like the stuff you put out there, it kind of shows your reputation as to what you have to offer to other people. But it's still a smaller community. I'd say maybe like groups of like 50 at most. And then you get to that fourth circle, and now this is public. Okay, this is posting on Twitter. This is posting on a large Discord. This is writing something on like medium.com where anybody can, or Substack, where anybody can come and read it. You have a blog or whatever. This is public information. Now you have to assume, you definitely have to assume that whatever information you give out here suddenly goes into the world and becomes fact around the world, public knowledge. So any angle you would put out there is probably going to get blown away just based on the amount of people that could possibly read it if you become a popular person or somebody that has a high reputation factor. So those are the four circles, right? So if you have something that is really sensitive and really valuable, you probably don't want to share that past your second circle, that very small group of people that you share information with. Once you get to that third circle and that fourth circle, you can't quite trust that valuable information. Now, if you want to talk about something that's long dead and you just want to kind of do a post-mortem or say, this is how I exploited this, there's often value in that. There's just not value that people can use to attack something right away. That would be like a public thing or a third or fourth circle type of thing. But if you have something like this is worth a couple $1,000s a week, you better keep that in a very tight circle to make sure that it's not something that gets blown out there to everyone. There's a saying that I first heard back in, I think it was 2002. And I heard about this saying because there was a blackjack blackjack promotion held in Biloxi, Mississippi on Father's Day, which happened to be June 21st. 21. And so they paid all blackjacks at 2-1 that day at the Imperial Palace in Biloxi. And word got out to basically every AP on the planet, and they all kind of went there. And it was just a ridiculous situation where the casino basically shut down blackjack after a couple hours because the players had an edge off the top of like 2.5%. And they were betting table max. So they're betting like $3,000 a hand, and casinos basically lost all of their high denomination chips to the players, and it was a big mess. It's legendary in Advantage Play circles. But somebody posted on the website BJ21, that was a member of Stanford Wong's website, and they said discretion is the better part of valor. And I've had that in my head ever since, as here is why you don't spill the beans about a very valuable promotion or a very valuable angle, is because discretion is the better part of valor. In other words, like if you want to feel like you have, puff your chest out, you've conquered the world, you actually have something that is like insanely valuable. Being discreet about it is actually far more valuable in terms of your own personal takeaway from the item than it is to tell the world about it. And so I've always kind of held that. Have I followed it to the T all the time? No, I've probably said things a little too much in different things for different promotions over the years. But at the same time, it just was like, man, if you can just kind of button the lip and keep it to yourself, that'll feel good for decades to come.
I mean, I can certainly think of one particular time you did not use discretion when talking about something fantastic, because that is unabated.com. It is very much the paradox here of the reality that we do promote fantastic tools, fantastic ways for you to find and get edges, and let's be real, make money if properly applied on unabated.com. And yeah, here we are trying to shout it from the rooftops to everybody. And it is one of the funny things about, being open about the problem with having something that helps give people an edge. They don't necessarily want to share that.
But here's the thing, Tom, we covered this on one of our first podcasts together, like last year. What is it about Unabated that makes it different than somebody giving all the answers out? Well, the difference is because we require people to do the work. we design these tools so that you have to put something in to get something out of it. Probably the number one reason we have people not continue with Unabated is because they don't want to do the work. They want the easy button. Well, the trouble is the easy button is going to lead to you destroying accounts. It's going to lead to you finding something that everybody else has already found. But if you can do the work and you can actually use the tools to kind of just leverage yourself up, it's very sustainable. And that's what we found. And we also found that if we build more than just one tool, so if we have, an entire array of tools, then not everybody's doing the same thing. And, there may be 1,000 ways to beat a sportsbook, and we're pointing you to 50 or 60 of them. So there's plenty of room for growth horizontally as well as bankrolls to grow vertically.
Indeed. And if you want to try and grow that bankroll vertically, again, we recommend heading on over to unabated.com today. Get yourself started with a trial if you're not already a member. We've launched our MLB First 5 tools. And, I know that I can talk about this because I saw us promoted on Twitter today. We have some WNBA prop stuff coming your way pretty soon as well. A lot of exciting things going on right now at Unabated. Again, that's unabated.com. Check it out today. Right, Jack?
Oh, absolutely. Look, WNBA is kind of a neat little angle. Women's sports are blowing up. There's a lot of money being wagered on women's sports right now. And it's a great opportunity for us to put out tools on the WNBA and also have it be a market that can take a little liquidity. I think it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people, especially those of us who they get to this point in the summer and they're just sick and tired of Major League Baseball. Look, I made a lot of money over the years on baseball. I still like betting baseball, but man, you get to these dog days, July, August, you're just begging for some football. You just can't stand that. It's like 16 games a day and you're just, trying to find edges on these same players' names every day. And this is a little bit, it breaks it up for the monotony for some people.
Definitely. And that's just, another way that you can use the fantastic tools we have for you at Unabated. And we hope that this episode is going to be a fantastic tool for you when it comes to BetBash networking and beyond. But for now, that is going to do it for us. I've been Thomas Viola. He's Captain Jack. You can find us on Twitter at Unabated Sports, Instagram, same place. And as always, one more time, check out unabated.com. Thanks for being here with us today. We'll see you next episode.